What movies do the critics and the audience disagree the most on? The Greatest Showman, a musical that's beloved by many in the general audience, but the critics were not hot on it. But on the flip side, Sausage Party was not cared for by the general audiences, but the critics loved. Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt in the sci-fi film Passengers was a major flop with critics, but audiences had a good time. Whereas audiences really didn't like Captain Marvel, but critics thought it was pretty great. Basically, every audience member that went out to see the Super Mario Bros. Movie came out saying that they had a good time with it, but the critics were definitely a lot more mixed. Whereas somehow less than half the audience had a good time with Spy Kids, whereas the critics, rightfully so, loved it. Star Wars The Last Jedi is the most divisive Star Wars film there's ever been, so of course the Rotten Tomatoes are going to reflect that as well between critics and audience. Uncharted has a 50% gap between the critic score and the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is the same gap for Venom. I'm definitely team audience here. I love this movie. 90% of the audience likes Super Troopers, whereas only 36% of the critics did. The largest gap is this 65% gap for the Boondock Saints, where only 26% of critics like this movie, but overwhelmingly 91% of the audience did.